Michelle Acosta,
Arna Banerjee, Kaylee Kirk,
and Megan McGinty
are proud to present the Women's Army Corps, how females whacked their way through an age-old military and gender frontier. Since the formation of the United States, women were commonly seen as unfit to join the military and other manly jobs. In 1941, Representative Edith Norris Rogers introduced the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps Bill to establish a supporting group for the armed forces, which was later converted to the Women's Army Corps in 1943. This group allowed women to patriotically serve their country in non-combat roles, which also allowed more men to fight during World War II. These women were granted the same rights, ranks, and status as their male counterparts. The WAC immediately paved the way for more women in the military, and slowly but surely helped women push a huge gender frontier, not just in the military, but eventually in society. During the early to mid-1900s, women weren't granted many rights. Society gave them the roles of dainty housewives and mothers, not as military personnel. The only way women could formally serve in the military was as nurses in the Army and Navy Nurse Corps. Doing anything otherwise was a ridiculous idea at the time.
Good morning, dears. Another great day serving our country. You know, tensions rising in Europe, anything could happen. Geo-war could even break out.
I sure would hope not.
Well, I'd feel plenty comfortable if I had to go to war and now you'd be home, taking care of the family.
Yep, after all, that's my job. Though to be honest, I'd love to join the military too.
She's hilarious.
Yeah, hilarious.
Little did they know, on May 28, 1941, Representative Edith Norris Rogers of Massachusetts was about to start pushing that frontier idea.
Good day, Mr. Speaker. I would like to propose a new idea. During the Great War, England's women, known as the WAACs, greatly assisted in the war effort. Their work in communications and hospitals proved to be a major success. Therefore, I am proposing that we establish a Women's Army Auxiliary Corps here in the USA. Members of this organization will be used to fill roles now filled by enlisted personnel of the Army. Females will have the chance to prove their patriotism to their country, if the men have to go fight. I believe the Army will welcome the assistance of women, because men are needed for other services.
With all due respect, this is a terrible idea. Jobs in the Army are made for men. It is absurd that some of us believe our women should fill these roles.
Excuse me, women should take on these roles. They will allow more men to serve in other much-needed positions.
Madam Congressman, women serving in the Army would make us look weak and tarnish our reputations. We need these women at home, taking care of their families, not taking care of guns.
Oh boy.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
With the United States entering another world war, Congress came to the agreement that they needed every man and woman they could get to help fight. 5 months after the U.S. entered World War II, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps Bill, and just a day later, Oveta Kopavi became the first director of the Corps. During this time, the Corps made many new advertisements. Let's check one out.
Join the WAC, take a crack at the Axis.
Are you a girl with a star-spangled heart? American women are meeting the challenge of total war with the same courageous determination that pioneer women showed when this country was a rough frontier wilderness. Today, in the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, we can again show the world the valiant spirit of American women. Let's see how some of these patriotic women are able to serve.
Hello, I would like to join the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps.
Wonderful. Do you have the required documents? Very well. Job assignment, we have hundreds of jobs to choose from telephone operators to medical care professionals.
Wow. I guess as long as I'm serving, I'll be happy.
Well, you seem up to military standards. Welcome to the WAC. Basic training will begin soon.
This certainly is a step up from how things used to be.
No doubt, and if I end up folding laundry, at least I'll be doing it for the good of my country.
I can't believe that nearly all post offices have enlistment centers now. It's so easy to serve. Any girl can join the WAC.
I know, right? We can even rise up to the rank of officer. I've always wanted to be one of those as a little girl.
Join the Women's Army Corps today.
Although the WAC brought women many new benefits and opportunities in the military, they still lacked the same rights and protections that male soldiers had.
Hello, I was wondering if I could receive my late sister's benefits for her service as a WAC.
Sorry, ma'am, but WACs don't receive those benefits.
Okay, well, could I at least receive my additional pay for going overseas?
WACs don't receive those benefits either, ma'am. But here's this week's top news. Who knew you WACs are so, well, out of whack?
What's this news headline? Those whacks are out of whack? Read more to see how these soldiers mess up America? What? Whack officers seen getting drunk with others at local bar? Male Army personnel report that whacks are scandalous, drink too much, and are being discharged constantly?
Those WACs are an abomination to America.
They're completely barbaric. I hear they're only there to keep the men happy.
We'd better spread the word. No one else should join that corps.
Many have sullied the name of our soldiers by saying that they are engaging in unforgivable acts and are being discharged. These claims are false and unjust. The Congress of the United States should be the first to stop slander upon our patriotic women.
Even President Roosevelt and the First Lady denied these accusations against the WAC. And because of the lack of the same rights men had, the recruitment rate for the Corps began to decline, but support in the war was still needed. It was decided that the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps would be transformed to the Women's Army Corps, meaning that these women would be an official part of the U.S. Army, a major frontier in military history.
As a male congressman, I feel outraged. The government is enabling women to take jobs from our hardworking men. This will destroy the very foundations of American society.
Now we're actually in the Army, and not just an add-on. We finally have the same rights and ranks as men. Even though we'll still serve non-combat roles, time to go serve America.
Why can't I have the same rights as white WACs? We African Americans are segregated, with different housing, mess halls, and even training. It's unjust. The Women's Army Corps claimed that it was a place of equal opportunity. But is separate really equal?
The 688th Central Postal Directory Battalion was the only female all-black battalion sent overseas in World War II. There, the woman's job was to pitch 2 years of backlog mail at a facility in England. Battling terrible conditions, the WAC set up a delivery system and completed the job in 3 months, which was half of the expected time. The 688th showed that women of color could accomplish great things, if given the chance, pushing the gender and racial frontier even further. All of the WACs still had important jobs that contributed to their country.
I get to serve by being a telephone operator.
I work in the Aircraft Warning Service. Go USA!
In 1945, World War II came to an end. The Allies had won. The WAC service in their non-combat roles proved to be a great success. General Douglas MacArthur, a senior army leader, even acknowledged the WACs.
The WACs were my best soldiers. They worked harder, complained less, and were better disciplined than men.
In 1948, the Women's Armed Service Integration Act was passed. This authorized women to serve not just in the Army, but in the Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps.
Wow, we're finally being acknowledged by our country for our efforts. We're more than just housewives, and it's about time people realized it.
After decades of being a separate branch of the military, the Women's Army Corps was officially disbanded in 1978, and women became full-fledged members of the military.
During the Gulf War in the early 90s, over 40,000 women were deployed into combat zones. Even though they still weren't able to fight, this was a big feat for the women.
In 1994, President Bill Clinton removed the risk rule. Women were able to engage in combat as aviators, sailors, and more, but they still couldn't fight on the ground.
Throughout the decades, before and after this act, many women paved new frontiers in the military. There were many firsts for these women.
I'm Captain Rosemary Marina, the first female Navy fighter pilot in 1974.
In 2005, Army Sergeant Lee Ann Hester became the first woman to earn the Silver Star for direct combat action.
I'm General Ann E. Dunwoody. I became the first female 4-star general in the Army in 2008.
In 2013, the ban on women serving in combat on the ground was removed. This meant that these women were able to patriotically serve their country on the battlefield. In 2015, this was put into action. Today, there are over 90,000 women who serve in all parts of the military with the same rights and ranks as male soldiers. The WAC also helped them improve themselves.
They show that they can serve just as well as men, and in some cases, even better.
Women began to take on more job roles outside of society's standards.
They crossed a gender frontier and raised the bar for women.
Women can do anything! Thanks to the Women's Army Corps,
The military frontier expanded.